Like we're all in some sort of transition of trying to get from place or point A to B, and that's life. And there's a lot of people out there who get stuck in the dash or in the in between. And that's the thing. That's why we're here today, and why I do what I do to help people get moving and don't get stuck in the in between. Take that next step and keep moving forward. And once you get from A to B, you realize there's a C. And then you get to C, you realize that there's a D.
Hello and welcome to the Thought Partners Arena, where we rumble, where we work on connecting, where we collaborate and co-create. And we are at the intersection of creativity and career.
It's the Thought Partners podcast. And I'm Paul.
I'm Ed.
And
Introducing the career whisperer, the man of 1,000 questions, Steven Fleming.
Steven Fleming. Hello, welcome to our podcast.
Great to be here. I've seen this from a distance and heard great things about it, so it's an honor to be here with you two today.
Well, thank you, Steven. And thanks for jumping into the sandbox with us. As our listeners know that we hit record and see what happens. And before I ask you a question to get us started, one of the things that I like to do with our new guests is ask them, what are they thinking, feeling, or experiencing today? So, Steven, what are you thinking, feeling, or experiencing today?
Thinking, feeling, or experiencing today. Like we're all in some sort of transition of trying to get from place or point A to B, and that's life. And there's a lot of people out there who get stuck in the dash or in the in between. And that's the thing. That's why we're here today, and why I do what I do to help people get moving and don't get stuck in the in between. Take that next step and keep moving forward. And once you get from A to B, you realize there's a C. And then you get to C, you realize that there's a D. So I think, what am I thinking, feeling today? We're all in that dash or in between, and need to keep moving or stepping forward.
So Paul and I have each had the benefit of working with you separately as thought partners, working through the transitions, that space in between, I think, as you described it. But this is our first chance having the three of us in a virtual room together. So I'm curious what your first reaction is to what could be called a tour de force by some of Paul and Ed together.
It's an interesting perspective, being in a familiar environment with you two individually, but now seeing the two familiar faces on the same screen. It's nice to join together. So those are my initial perceptions of this, and looking forward to diving in to see how the conversation may evolve, given the conversations that you, Ed and I have, and then you, and Paul have.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I love the phrasing stuck in the dash. That's so cool. I have a dear friend and colleague. I'll just call her out, TK Peterson, Takitha, in case anybody wants to look her up. She has a blog and a podcast, I believe, called Working the Dash, and very much resonates. It's been something I have been a huge fan and follower of for many years. And I also heard you say in the in between, and I heard you say we're all kind of in the in between all the time. It doesn't always feel like.
Like, no one wants to stay stuck. We always strive for more and better. And we say life is about the experience of attaining, becoming. There's always more. You have goals, you set them, you'll get there, and then you'll see, oh, now I can see more. And so I think that's the experience of life, of enjoying the process. And no one wants to just have the same thing every day. We always want something more, something different. Each day gives us a new taste of what next, what more.
Can you illustrate that path for us for yourself by giving us a little bit of insight into you, not the LinkedIn bio. We can all go look up Stephen Fleming on LinkedIn and see that part of it. But like, can you tell us a little bit of the version of your story that you don't usually start with, about the path that got you to where you are and to where you're going?
I would say self-discovery and facing my fears of I'm knocking on 40 right now. My birthday is later this week. And there's some things that I'm doing or realizing now that were fears that I had in high school, like with music. You see, my background's a lot of the music things. And I intentionally didn't major in music. I chose the accounting kind of corporate route. And then my second career is in career ownership coaching. That's all because of a fear of I don't want to depend on my hobby, my passion for a livelihood. I wanted to be able to do that because I wanted to, not because I needed to. And I had fears that that wouldn't be able to sustain me. And in certain seasons, that surprised me. Or I'll come across other musicians who are making six figures and don't have as much talent as me, and so something getting out of my fear zone is putting myself out there more and working with people and having those conversations to do more music. It's from a passion point, but that also opens up to jobs and gigs and things. One of the reasons I chose the second career path was to not be as rigid in a 9 to 5, to have the flexibility to live my passions and take a morning off or take an afternoon off to do music or even be more physically fit and active and run around the park, play my saxophone at Lake Eola and things like that. So things that I've always thought, hey, a different version of me would be doing. I'm like, well, Steven, what are you waiting on? Do those things now. And I'll see examples of people living, doing, being what I feel like I could, should have. To me, I'm taking that now as Steven, why aren't you?
So when you think about music, I had the privilege of being around a decent amount of musicians in my life. I am a terrible musician, for the record, but I have a great appreciation for several people in my life that have been major musicians in some at some level. How do you see that part of you that used to be kind of only the hobby side or the this side that's coming front and center a little bit more? How do you see that connecting to the career version of you, the personal version of you? Is there that line that maybe isn't there anymore that maybe used to be?
Yeah, I feel like that I'm blurring that line or integrating more. So I had a video to come out today, and there's an intro song, "What a Wonderful World," but that's me playing, but it's really about career and getting to a place where life is good. But something I've been pushed to do more recently is don't sit on your talents. That's unique. That's authentically you. Use it. And a lot of times we'll hear music and or sound, audible things in corporate type things or commercials. Well, Stephen, my call it tiny desk living room. Why aren't you making your own commercials and using your own music? And so that's something I've started doing of integrating more. That's part of who I am. Show it. We're None of us are usually one path, one track. We all usually have something multifaceted about us, and we make compartmentalize. Something I'm appreciating is no, that can be holistically me joined together, not in this box, in this box, in this box. It's one big circle.
Paul, I see you wanting to pull on a thread. I know that look. I know that look.
How does someone get there, um, in such a scared state with, uh, the world coming at them and telling them that everything's falling apart, or they look around and comparison is the thief of joy, and they're comparing, or not even to other people, but to the idea of what they were supposed to be doing, and Um, you certainly you what you said earlier was self-discovery and facing my fears. What is that? How does that breakthrough happen?
We use a lot of acronyms in what I do. And so there's an acronym for fear of false evidence appearing real and asking ourselves, what if that's not true? And if there's two sides or three sides to everything, what's the opposite of that? And if we're one Earth, 8 billion different worlds, what may be true for me today may not be true for me tomorrow. What may be true for you today may not be true for me today. And so I think it's Adam author on YouTube who says, what are your truths? Now, what would be the opposite of that truth? Now look and find some evidence for that opposite to be true. And you can realize that reality bends and our truths, our beliefs, our identities are all right here. And we're usually this far away from what we want, but it starts here and changing our mind.
Now, I hear people say a lot of times that reality bends and they look at that as a negative, but you have it framed as a positive. I'm curious how we got there.
Consuming a lot of content and listening to people, podcasts and things like this, challenging the way I think from others who have done it. We can choose to look out in the world and see things to make us scared and make us shrink and make us dim our light, or we can choose to look out in the world and see things to empower us to turn our light up brighter and get the change. Like there's for every story of doom and destruction, if we look, there's a story of overcoming and growing and beating all odds. And most of those stories, a lot of us aren't as bad off if the people who have overcome things like that. So I think it's motivational. We can either see things to cause us to dim our lights, or we can see motivation to have us turn it up. There's a quote that I go back to a lot, and it's come up the last few days. Is Marianne Williamson, and it says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us." And we ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are we not to be? We are children of God. Our playing small doesn't serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are meant to shine as children do. We're born to make manifest the glory of God through within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And if we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are exonerated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberates others. It goes back to a little song I heard growing up. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
Yeah.
As you're reading that, I can't help but think about the musicality of that quote, and I can see automatically why that, not beyond the subject matter, why that would resonate with you. Just the rhythm, the pacing, the direction of it. I'm getting a little bit clearer picture of who Stephen Fleming is just in that little moment. So I appreciate that.
And I also appreciate that you said 8 billion reasons. Anybody who listens to this podcast with any regularity, I think I say at least once an episode. Do you know how many people there are in the world? There are 8 billion people in the world. And do you know how much a million is? You know how much a billion is compared to a million? It's that this is an unthinkable, unfathomable. And so like this is where that like two things being true at the same time, or um that friction comes in for me, Stephen, because I heard you say that response to reality bends, sometimes having a negative connotation, but I think what I heard you say is context matters. And our mindset matters in that when you say false evidence appearing real, in that what we believe or what we pay attention to, what we put our focus on, is what we see more clearly. And there's 8 billion people in the world, and there are lots of people making other choices and going other directions. And that this is one way to lean into the context of looking for and showing our light. How does that resonate with you?
Before I respond, I want to call out Ed. How does that resonate with you?
To me, I think of the way that there are all of these fancy LED driven light programs and things now. The different ones that you can plug in and you can run them with an app and you can change them to
Yep.
billions of colors, just gradients and little tweaks and changes.
Have some of those.
And this world has been created in such a way to allow that because going back to Paul's one per episode, 8 billion people, 8 billion perspectives, which we need a graphic that just shows up on screen, by the way, Paul, when you reference that. But for those of you who are listening or watching on YouTube. But going back to it, the hues of the world, the different colors that you can get down to like the pixel color that you want, it just sets the table for the world that we live in. Like each of us can see that little gradient difference and go, "Oh, that's the right shade. That's my shade. That's my color. That's the one I want shining on my house or peering overhead or showing up in the background of my computer." And in a way, it's like our own little corner of the world that not only do we get to customize, but we get to make that moment where it's the right thing for us. Someone else might look at it and be like, "No, turn that off. That's terrible. You put a blue up here. This should clearly be red." But each of us gets to make that own decision in something as little and silly as the color of our lighting. So that's my initial response, Stephen, taking us way off into the cornfield.
No, I feel like that brings it together because we're all different. If you think about the colors out in nature, the sounds and the birds chirping, I'm going back to music, but having a bird in a cage is going to be a chirp, chirp, chirp. Take that same bird in the forest, it's going to come back with a song. And we pull on each other's experience and perspective, or no one of us are the same. Even twins or have differences about them. And it's in those differences that we connect kind of one by one, two by two to all build something together. If we think about everything that's in front of us that's created in this world, from the books behind Paul, from the instruments behind me, the shirts and the colors we're wearing, someone created that, but they didn't do it by themselves. It took someone's idea versus someone else's to come together and create something. And I think the more of us that lean into our own, I'm using a word or in Paul's dictionary, lean into our own superpowers, we connect with others and can magnify and magnetize those. So I think it's
Mm.
just that we're all different and we live in our superpowers and we're going to connect to or find some way to use our value to benefit someone else's, and someone else is going to benefit from us, and that's going to keep growing and glowing.
Well, and those folks who don't use theirs to benefit anybody else, still when they show up, now I'm thinking about the pixels. Ed, you took me out. You did take me on a whole ride because now then I was thinking about how I was when Stephen was talking. I was thinking how incredibly tiny and minute we are in the big scheme of things, and yet how even just that one pixel makes a difference. It changes the whole color. It changes everything. And so each addition um makes a difference. And because there are 8 billion people in the world, there are people out there choosing something else. And there are people out there who are playing different games and um, lead with different mindsets. I think it was, well, I don't have I was looking for one of my quotes. I thought I might have had a Marcus Aurelius quote that was good for this up on my wall. Stephen, I think you know this about me, but I keep little reminder notes around my desk to remind me of things like, what would this look like if it were fun? And oftentimes there are quotes from philosophers. But what I was thinking about was how, like, we all need each other, but other people are really annoying, or they can be. And the difficulty is
He's talking
um,
about me.
leaning into that and still showing up with your light.
I think there's 2 perspectives to think on that as far as the annoying people. Part of me would say, "Well, those aren't your people. Change your focus to someone else." But another thought is, what about them is triggering something in us? If we're 8 billion, 8 billion, worlds, one Earth, 8 billion different people, we could look at it as, hey, each person is living our own movie. I'm living my movie, and everyone else is extras or bots.
I was just talking to someone this week who was really in their feelings about just all the reasons that they're frustrated, all the things that they didn't want to do, and all of the reasons why they didn't like their schedule at work, and the things that it was keeping them from. And the story was the story was strong. It was really strong, and it 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 made me wonder what they were missing, because they were giving so much of their focus and attention on those things that were so challenging to. And when I say
So,
what they were missing, I mean what they weren't paying attention to, like what they weren't putting the light on. What's in the frame, what's in the periphery that isn't getting the light on it like these other things are.
Paul, that makes me kind of bridge back to Steven's comment about the main character in your own story and how some people don't feel like they're the main character in their own story. They're the side character. They're the NPC. They're the person that someone else has the controller and is controlling the person next to them, and they just get to watch. And so I think one of the things, Steven, that I know about you is you are a person who is compassionate and at the same time is going to make you think about why would someone potentially see themselves not as the main character of their own story. And that's it goes back to my initial introduction of you as the man of a thousand questions, because that's how I've known you the entire time that we've known one another. Is it's all about the framing, it's all about that perspective, and it bridges between those things of how do you feel like you are the main character in your own story versus maybe some of those times or some of those points where you're stuck and you don't feel like you are. You feel like you're just kind of showing up and running your NPC world, your non-player character world for those of us because we got to drop the acronyms, right?
Well, yes, and like maybe it's also like, oh, if only they saw me, or if only they did this, if only because that the point about not being the main character, sometimes it's like that victim perspective of, well, I could be the main character if only these people would.
But X, Y, and Z. But we're in the storytelling realm, and now I'm Steven leaned in. So now we're ready. For those of you who didn't have a chance to see that, Steven's leaning in. He's gonna go ahead.
So,
I'm sorry to
like,
sorry to
part of
interrupt your
that
flow.
is within ourselves. A lot of people look for external validation, but if you don't validate yourself or give yourself that feeling first, you won't likely find it outside of yourself. And something you mentioned, Ed, of uh, observing how, what I am, what I do, something that's been reflective that Paul, you've put an impact on me from when using the term superpower and unlocking or finding our own superpowers in reflection outside of our call since last year. I had to ask myself, what's mine? Not saying I don't have one, but more so identifying that so I can lean into it more. And it's creating shifts like through music, people can feel it through conversation, people act on it and I help move people be like a wind of change. I've helped people move from being stuck to clear, from passive to decisive, from scattered to aligned. And if I were to say my superpower that's been observed through Ed and kind of made reflect to observe on from you, Paul, is making people feel something real and then do something about it. So emotion, then action. So music that's not just performing, that's changing or shifting the atmosphere, something you feel. And then even the coaching is not advising, but unlocking direction. So it's we all feel something. What are we going to do about it?
I would love for you to talk a little bit more about the connection between performing and coaching, because I think those are two defining pillars that I've heard you talk about today. I'm just curious how you see those two things intersecting.
I think the foundation is change, kind of change the way you feel, change the way you think. From a music perspective, music can change atmospheres or change shifts moods, whether we realize it or not. Open up our hearts. When we change our vibration or feel differently, we unlock new thoughts here. So that's from a music perspective of change or shifting the room or atmospheres. But the same way of coaching is when we bring in the room and it's just one on one, it's being able to pull on feelings, the good, the bad, the ugly, put them on the whiteboard, categorize them, and then unlock direction. So in that, people feel seen and understood, then challenged to get out of the dash and get from A to B to C and keep moving forward. Because I think a lot of us will have, we're not taught this stuff, but it's something I've had to learn in life. We'll feel something, some kind of pain or resistance. Paul, going back to the story you mentioned of the lady being focused on the negatives, but all that's doing is causing her to feel something. Now, we're not taught to what are you going to do with that? How do you change or shift here so you can get out of that feeling? I think that feeling comes so you know I need to change or do something about it. But most people don't think like that. They may get stuck or in that rumination of the bad thoughts. But sometimes life can be going good or great, and then something happens. We don't feel good about it, but then do we get stuck or do we now use that to shift focus to go to something else? Life has a funny way of poking us and prodding us to keep moving.
Well, humans love change. We all know that, right? I mean, humans love to change. It's not that humans are so into inertia and like, being able to predict what's going to
No,
happen
I
next.
want it to, I want things to stay the same. I want my perfect easy life to just write that out, but that doesn't exist.
Wait, what? It doesn't what?
Yeah, it exists.
What do you
Everything
mean?
everything changes. The sun, the moon, the stars, the night and the day, the seasons, the years. We can't things are a certain way for a appointed time or point in time, and then that season or that day is going to change. And I think our suffering, sometimes the resistance is trying to hold on to, no, I don't want things to change.
Or I really do want things to change, but they're not changing the right way or fast enough.
Or I want things to magically change and me not to have to do any work to do so.
Hmm? Yes, that.
So change ultimately, Stephen, if I'm let me take this and kind of process. What I'm hearing from you is that the change is the piece. It is the magic. It is the underlying principle. And it also is the thing that requires the energy. It requires you to put energy into it. It requires some sort of energy to be spread in some way. Going back to the musical piece, the performance piece, the coaching piece, it doesn't, none of that happens just sitting and having no energy put into it. What do you think about energy, my friend?
Think it drives all of us. Energy, we can say, is magic to some, but the more enlightened people or the masters of our world know how to harness and use energy. And I can say electricity, fire, gravity are all electricity is energy. And it can kill us or it can light up our house and give us AC and give us heat.
Can
And
run our LED colors.
mhm, and it's knowing how to harness, how to use that energy to our benefit. That same energy can kill us or can make our life better.
So I keep hearing, I hear us talking about learning how to manage oneself and energy and your curiosity and mindset. Um, but I want to bring us back to the idea of community and needing others. Um, because you said something early in the conversation, Stephen, about like all of these great things that we have and that are done and from our clothes to Um, it, one of the things that struck me recently is I saw that Eurovision is coming up. I don't know if you know about Eurovision or if you've ever watched it, but it's a big deal in my house, and we watch it every year. It's a song contest that happens been happening in Europe for 70 years, um, and every year they put on a new show. I watched and I saw that they're showing new shots of the stage that they've put together. And talk about lights, Ed. They've like thousands and thousands of lights, and they put on this incredible show. And I was thinking to myself, how many humans it took from concept to delivery just to bring that stage together, let alone what they're going to do with it come the song contest next week or the week after. And I was thinking about like how we mobilize groups of people to stick together and support each other through whatever it is they're going through. All of these people, by the way, are also in the in between. They're working the dash. They're in, but they're still accomplishing these things. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts about what you've learned about what actually makes a group of people stick together and support each other.
Simple as put, I would say the right people or the right leaders. We think about leadership as maybe being success or climbing ladders, but I view leadership as being able to pull out the best in people and be a glue to pull people together. Um, Even looking at families, looking at mine, we have maybe less of that now than we did when I was growing up, but there are certain aunts and grandmothers and things who are like the glue to families who always pull everyone together. And sometimes when they pass on, no one steps up to be that glue. But going back to you're both familiar with the disc. We know that people are wired differently. It's usually the high I's that have unique attributes to be the glue to pull people together. So I would say to your point, Paul, it's the leaders or people who can be viewed as leaders or people who know how to pull people together to pull out the best in everyone for us to put our pennies or our dimes in the basket to make a dollar, $10, $100, $1,000,000. And it's not about I think leadership is not about individual or personal success. It's about being able to be an influence on so many others to pull us together. If we're little ants, it's the queen ant, or it's the glue to pull us all together to accomplish something so great that none of us could do by ourselves. And that goes to impact. I'm talking when we multiply 1 plus 1 is 2 to 10 to 100 to 1,000, the impact we can do can be much greater. We all have a sense in that when we put our little penny in that $1,000,000 or in that $100, we can see the impact is much greater than we could have done by ourselves. Some people have unique abilities to pull people together and pull out their strengths. And those are the leaders that we remember that go down in history. Great things that they may have done by themselves, they had a unique power ability to pull people together, push, lead, encourage people to accomplish things that we couldn't do by ourselves.
So one of the thing I love that just that ability to just bring up those around and that being the primary quality of leaders. Because I think about my career, the folks that have stood out, the folks that I have connected with, the folks that have I've I've taken some sort of piece from my interaction with them and I'm better because of it. And while they were not all my leader, they were leaders to me in terms of leading the path that was going to build me to the person I am today and hopefully the person I am tomorrow and a year from now. So I really connect with that definition, that picture of leadership and appreciate that.
What do you do in situations, Stephen, when you find yourself, or Ed, actually, I would like to hear from Ed too. When you find yourself, um, faced with someone who is stuck, someone who can't see themselves in that moment. They can't see a way out. They're shining their light on all of the negative things. Their inner child is strong in that moment. Beyond meeting them where they are, acknowledging, accepting, validating that their feelings are real. What's the thing that um what what do you see in that moment that that person can't see? Either of you.
So I'll jump in because the first thing that I see is someone needs a story. They need something that they can relate to and something that they can connect with to help understand where they are. That's my 1A. And my 1B for that person is you can't make them do anything. They have to have that aha moment. They have to have that light switch flipped. And I think that's something I will say, Stephen, you are fantastic about helping someone do. But it's through the stories, it's through the connection. Like you can't just look at somebody and say, Paul, you got to change, man. You got to, the beard's just not working, man. But if I give you a story that you can connect with about the person who shaved their beard and made $1,000,000, well, maybe that's not you, but maybe at least you can contextualize where I'm commes from. So it's a two-way
Storyteller Ed.
street. There we go. Yeah. The MFA in creative writing coming back with a vengeance.
Being inserting my thoughts into this puzzle, so I think it's kind of bringing it full circle. My 2 thoughts, kind of 1A and 1B. One was, they have to make a choice. Do you want to keep ruminating in that, or do you want different? And that may pause or break someone's thought process to like, "Well, I don't want this." That's a choice. Maybe easier to get there from a story or bringing them in, like Ed just called out. But then 2, you can't get there from there.
You can't get that from here?
You can't get there where you wanna go from there. So it's a choice, a decision. Do you want to get out of that? Okay, if you can't get there from there, we need to do something, whether it be a story, whether it be a pause, break, or focus on something else, but change this somehow. Change this to now unlock the next step to where you want to go. Because if you're in the middle, or you're in that car or that train that's coming down the hill and it's all bad stuff, sometimes get out the way. Don't let it hit you or smash you. Let it kind of slow down. Then you can see, okay, change your direction. But sometimes that momentum is so hard and fast, can't it's hard to snatch someone out of that. That's something I struggle with sometimes. I'm not being too direct. I can smack you in your face or throw water at you, but it's not gonna help you. It may be, like Ed mentioned, a story or something to resonate to help kinda shift something to then, "Okay, let me slow things down and start to change my perspective." That's my challenge sometimes, how to force or I can't force, how to realize a choice, get out of that because you can't get there from there.
Like the choice, it runs against my lots of choices between either and or, and it makes it into like binary almost. But I like the binary choice of, do you want to keep ruminating on that or make a difference or make a change? But that's a legitimate question because sometimes they do just want to keep ruminating on that. And I think it's okay to be a shoulder, to be a listener, to be an ear, um, to sit with them, and let them feel their feelings. And um, I guess what I'm looking for is like, and I think we're getting there, like this idea of a story that helps shake them out of it or a story that helps them look at it a different way. It's basically reframing problems, right? Or reframing the way in which someone sees it. And so I wonder, like, what's that point of like when you shift away from that versus sometimes people just want to whine and complain and get it off their chest and they don't actually want to do something about it, or they think that they have a plan for it and they're working their plan, but like sometimes they just want to to ruminate for a little bit. I like the idea of like saying like, would you like to just complain about that for a while? Would that make you feel better? I don't know, that came across a little condescending, but what are your thoughts about that?
I try to stay compassionate. I try not to be aggressive, but
Mm,
something I heard in a keynote speech was, I think it was Dan Thurman, motivational change management. He has a tattoo here that says "Can't change it." He has a number of things that almost killed him or crushed his life that he's overcome. And his thought is, you can let yourself scream, holler, cry, ruminate, but no more than 5 minutes. And then if you can't change that, okay, now what else? And keep moving. And that could be learning how to walk again, coming from being bankrupt to being a millionaire, whatever the extreme is. Accept it, cry, scream, let it out. And then how do I move forward? So my challenge is for those who We don't wanna change. That's probably my challenge of how to be compassionate, to believe that they really do, but they may be in their 5 minutes. That 5 minutes for some could be 5 months or 5 years.
So not only does that person have a choice along that either or spectrum of what they're going to do, but we, the person that is interacting with them, the person that is being leaned on as a support system, we also have a choice of whether or not we're going to put up with this or whether or not we're going to contribute, whether we're not or not we it's our responsibility to be involved. I'm curious how that is bouncing off the room.
It hit me like a brick. Because I think it gets to the root of what I was trying to get at and look for some help with, some thought partnership on, which is, yeah, at what point do I shift and not get pulled into the river? I I have a tendency, being vulnerable, to get pulled into the river on things. Um and
Such as hosting a podcast because Ed won't leave you alone.
yeah, but that's been fun and it's been a good time and I really enjoyed it.
It's a good river. Continue.
But I think what we're co-creating here is um some support for the supportive, some support for um our own stories in challenging moments with other humans, when, like you said, Stephen, earlier, they're suffering or you experience them as suffering, or there are stories that are wrapped up that they're wrapped up in, and at what and sort of like what are the guideposts for yes and okay, yes, I hear you, I see you, I validate you, and
And last exit before the end of the highway. That's what Paul's saying.
But I think that's my being vulnerable, that's my challenge of I'm a catalyst for change, I have a desire to fix or help. But what if I'm in someone's 5 minutes and it's their first 50 seconds? Am I going to stay there for 5 minutes, or do I come off as insensitive? Because if to Paul, if you can get pulled into the river, I may get my toes or my feet wet, but I don't want that to rise against my knees, and I may step out. How are they perceiving? Was I there as someone to comfort, console, help, or did I walk away when it became uncomfortable for me? Because that's a challenge. I don't know the right answer. It depends on who. But that's something that I struggle with. How much do I lean in versus when is it time for me to protect my energy and focus somewhere else?
So one of the things that we do on the podcast is we try and co-create something for our listeners to be able to leave today's episode and go interact with a piece of what we've done here today. And it strikes me that the best way of doing that today might be in coming up with a few questions that someone could answer or someone could wrestle with. They may not have the answer. And Paul, you and I have known through many conversations, open questions aren't exactly the worst thing or the best thing. They're just a thing.
mhm.
And there's some instances where an open question will tell you more than an answered question. And so I think the first thing, if we were to put together a list of questions today that someone could take away from our conversation and wrestle with, To me, one of them goes back to our early part of the conversation, Stephen, that you introduced, which is a simple question of what are you stuck on? For some, it's career. For some, it's not having enough time to do X. For some, it's not staying in contact with Y. I don't know. But what are you stuck on? That would be one of my questions I would introduce. Any thoughts from you two gentlemen?
I would take it a step further and say, yeah, maybe take that a step further and go into gauging where they are. So I'm thinking back to Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett, from out of the Stanford D School. They had this work, play, love, health dashboard, right? And so like you sort of identify like where you were on the dashboard for work, for play, for love, and for health, to sort of identify where there was a need or where there was opportunity, or to identify, shining the light in the right places, where there was abundance that we could leverage, to fill the tank for the other spaces. And so I would maybe take it a step further and say, where are you stuck, and where is it, where is that coming from? Is it work, play, love, or health?
Going deeper into that, questions that came to mind for me are where are you behind where are you stuck? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? What can I help you with?
What can you help you with?
Ooh,
Who might help you with that?
Are you in the river? If so, how deep?
you want help.
And to top it all off, what color are your lights?
I love this. I love this because, and I also want to call out that, you said, Stephen, I try to stay compassionate and not aggressive, and that resonates with me a lot. Um, it can be real. It, I think that it's a human thing to immediately launch into either evaluation or solutionizing or rescuing or creating a story. But that compassion for where someone is and what their story is at that moment, I think is really important, um, takeaway that I had today about the way in which we start getting to those questions that we came up with.
The other piece is that capacity to change or capacity for change.
Whenever we have someone on the podcast and it's not just me and Ed bouncing ideas around, we also like to save space for anything that you wanted to talk about or hoped that we might talk about or that you wanted to bring up, or a topic that's front of mind for you, so that we can make sure that we touch on that before we wrap. So, Stephen, anything in particular that that you were hoping we go to, or that maybe you'd like to take us?
Theme summary, and this is coming just right now in the moment of what we've been talking about today, and impact. and change and moving forward. We're all different. We all bring something unique to the table. I think we started with a focus or a spotlight on me, but I want to hear from you two, from your personal perspectives. What are you most proud of your accomplishments from birth to now? And how may that add value to the pot? So, what are you most proud of that you've gotten over, accomplished, overcome from it could be childhood, parenthood, being a husband, friend, a brother or son to today? What are you most proud of that you feel like can that's something that you carry with you as in your toolbox to impact and encourage others?
Mine is being a great father and setting up the world in such a way that my son has every opportunity he has in front of him. Not that he just gets everything handed to him, but that if he wants to earn his way, if he wants to go a path, making sure that he has the structure in place to support that.
It's beautiful, Ed. I'm glad that you are proud of being a good father and that you know you're a good father. I love that. Steven, when you asked your question, it threw me right off my chair. I almost fell over because you were like, from birth until now. And I was like, I, that I've been here a long time trapped in this meat suit.
You're like 20, right?
And no, I've been trapped in this meat suit for a good long while. And from birth until now is really tough. I feel like I've had several different cycles. Um, but when you say like, what am I most proud of? I I came from a youth, very young age, and hearing Ed talk about him being a great father is so awesome. And I'm so thrilled that his son gets to be in such a positive environment. And the environment from which I came was not positive. It was full of fear, full of anger, full of um missed opportunities, full of um, scarcity and never enough, full of judgment about other people, was certainly not compassionate or empathetic. And I'm proud of the fact that I came away from that and recognized and realized the value of compassion and the value of kindness and the value of light being more powerful than darkness. And I'm proud of the fact that while my inner critic still chirps up now and then and reminds me, and while there is often a pull toward that headspace and that mindset because it was very coded very strongly, um, that I still am able to look around today and see a community of people who lean into love, who lean into compassion, who lean into rumbling. I have friends around me that I don't even physically see, often or ever, whether they're in Ohio or they're in Montana or they're in Hawaii or they're in New Zealand or Australia, that I only know virtually, that um, because of leaning into these mindsets, I am surrounded by empathy and love and compassion. So I'm proud of that.
Going back to music, there's a song, there's lyrics that are sitting with me right now. It's a classic. It's Diana Ross, 1970. Reach out and touch someone's hand. Make this world a better place if you can. Reach out and touch someone's hand. Make this world a better place if you can. And that's the my takeaway impact from being here today and the things we've talked about is living that.
Yeah. And it's a perfect segue into how we end all of our podcast episodes, I think. And that is by reminding ourselves and reminding our audience to take care of yourself and each other. So please do that. And thank you, Stephen, for joining us and rumbling in our sandbox and joining us as a thought partner on our podcast. We appreciate you.
My pleasure, my privilege. You two are doing great work here. And it's been a great experience.